Hello viewers, thank you for joining me, and Happy New Year! To start off 2026, you voted for Wandering Witch, The Journey of Elena. It was an interesting experience. One of those anime where I was pretty confident I knew what I was going to say about it when it came time to sit down and write the review, but then the final episode changed the way I looked at this show, just a bit. Wandering Witch introduces you to a young girl named Elena. As a child, she was inspired by a storybook written by a traveling witch, detailing all her adventures. Elena swore to become a witch herself so she could go on her own adventures one day. From then on, she did nothing but study and practice magic, passionate to the point of obsession, until she passed the test to qualify as an apprentice witch at just 13. The youngest the country had ever seen. She was recognized as a full-fledged witch a year later, and her journey began. Wandering Witch is the kind of anime that follows its main protagonist through a series of mini-adventures in each land Elena visits. It actually can get pretty dark sometimes, but for the most part, it's a pretty lighthearted kind of show. I do want to start by saying that I think it was a good choice for a January series. It can be nice to start out the year on a peaceful, more laid-back note. Last year I watched an anime called Flying Witch, and my main complaint with that one had been that it was peaceful to the point of being boring. In that sense, Wandering Witch was more along the lines of what I'd been hoping to see, but if it feels like these early high points are designed to try and soften a blow, it's because I still didn't love this anime. Let's step back a bit. Episode 1 is the origin story, and after working so hard and earning her apprenticeship pin, she immediately hits a roadblock when none of the witches in town want to take on a child as their student, it being strongly implied that they're all jealous or intimidated by her being so skilled so young. Finally, she meets Fran, the Stardust Witch, and though Elena's not impressed by her eccentric, airheaded demeanor, beggars can't be choosers, and Miss Fran is happy to take her on as an apprentice. Except, as the days and then months pass, Fran never shows any inclination towards teaching her any magic. It seems like she's hired Elena on as a maid rather than a student. Until one day, she finally takes Elena out to a field and announces they're having a test. What follows is an aggressive battle that an ordinary apprentice would have had no hope of even surviving, but she's still no match for Fran. This is the fatal flaw lesson, the test designed to thoroughly break her down and make her confront some great personal shortcoming, the moment where Fran makes her realize she wasn't ready to learn the actual magic yet, because something about the way she approached her studies or her life goals needed to be reformed first. A classic sensei-student moment, right? Except, at least as far as I'm concerned, they get the lesson wrong. Fran makes it out like Elena just needs to stand up for herself more, not put up with so much when it doesn't benefit her or when someone's wasting her time. But I don't think you have to spend more than this first episode with her to see that Elena's not the type of girl who needs help bolstering her self-esteem. Honestly, she rubbed me the wrong way pretty regularly because of how full of herself she was. The moments when she's a little selfish or self-centered I didn't mind so much. That was often used for comedic effect, and they got some laughs out of me. But nothing sours her interactions with the people she meets faster than when they're not as impressed by her talent or beauty as she thinks they should be. And I spent most of the series waiting for something to properly humble her the way I felt Fran was supposed to back during their training days. And this wasn't just me not particularly liking a character. It felt like such a clear, in-your-face character flaw that I was confident the series had to be building up to a point where they addressed it, because the story was suffering a bit for it. The weakest episode is episode 3, where you're given 2 mini plotlines where Elena flies into a town, gets wrapped up in some conflict there, and then takes off before either problem is given a conclusion. In the first one, she's stopped at the gates and a bouquet of wildflowers she was carrying is confiscated. She's told these flowers are cursed. They drive ordinary people who can't use magic insane. But one of the guards does end up infected, and the segment ends with Elena flying away, watching a horde of these flower zombies converge on the town, sighing in a, well, isn't that just unfortunate kind of way. Like, what do you mean you take this much pride in your talent, being the youngest witch of your generation and all, and you're not going to stop and try to help when you encounter a danger like this, especially when it's kind of your fault? I really don't hate her character, though I'd forgive you for being skeptical. I think one of the biggest problems I had with Wandering Witch is that I went into it expecting the journeys of an adventurer, and a lot of the time what I got were the tales of a sightseer. Elena does her best not to get involved in anything that might inconvenience her. And on one hand, I can respect that, but as the story went on, I started really itching for someone to stop her and just ask, hey, do you ever feel like you're maybe missing the point of this journey? There's just something kind of off-putting about watching a character go on an adventure, only to sidestep most of the actual adventures. But I did say I was viewing her character in a slightly different light by the end. The final episode brings Elena to a land that supposedly has the power to make your dreams come true. Once she sets foot inside, she's swallowed into this world that's a weird mashup of all the places she's seen on her travels so far. And inside the castle, she finds 15 other versions of herself. A couple of them feel pretty random, crafted purely for comedic effect. But for the most part, these other Elenas each showcase one of her many insecurities or character flaws. They very generously allow her to be known as Protagonist Elena, but the flaw that they initially call her out for is having no personality. This, combined with a scene at the end of the previous episode, made me consider that maybe I'd been reading her wrong this whole time, that her arrogance may be part of a defense mechanism. In the previous episode, she'd reunited with Miss Fran, and when they part ways again at the end, it looks almost physically painful for her to finally let her walls down a bit and admit to Fran that she's going to miss her and enjoyed seeing her again. Elena is so emotionally repressed that it's a huge end-of-the-series deal that she can admit to the teacher who changed her life that she cares about her, an attachment anyone would expect her to have. It's not true arrogance so much as pride. Elena is the epitome of being too proud for your own good. She needs other people to think she's as untouchable as she desperately wants to be. In hindsight, that gives me such a better appreciation for why so many of her adventures end up feeling a little shallow, because Elena, for all that she puts up a very convincing facade of being oh so mature, above all the nonsense other people get caught up in, isn't truly confident enough to let her walls down enough to let other people in, to get properly attached to the people she meets on her journey. Which makes it so that she doesn't generally pick up the life lessons from all these mini-adventures that you'd expect a protagonist to learn in a story like this. It's very telling that Elena wants to be the storyteller for the next generation. It allows her to control the narrative, to keep the story itself at a safe distance. That shield is up at all times, with one major exception. And I want to apologize for including spoilers in this review without a clean cutoff point, but Elena's character really is the story here, and I can't properly talk about her without this last bit. Episode 9 is jarringly dark in a way I loved, notably the only episode that opens with a warning that it might not be suitable for young children. In a new town and out of money, Elena takes on a sketchy job from another witch named Estelle. Estelle tells her the story of her childhood friend Selena. While Estelle was abroad studying magic, Selena's parents were murdered. She was taken in by an uncle, but it was revealed that he was abusing her after she snapped and killed him. Once she got a taste for it, Selena never recovered, and she went on to become a notorious serial killer, until Estelle completed her training. She returned and was ultimately the one to catch and execute her childhood friend. She wants Elena's help to have enough power to complete a spell that will allow them to go back in time for 1 hour. All Estelle wants is to stop the original murders, give the girl she viewed as a sister the chance to keep her innocence and grow up in peace, even though they do address that this will play out in a different timeline from the future she and Elena will return to. She needs this if she's ever going to be at peace with her own role in Selena's life. In a twist that wasn't terribly shocking to me, given the similarities of the murders, there turns out to only be one killer. Selena stabbed her own parents to death and claims to have never felt particularly strongly about her supposed best friend. At this betrayal, Estelle's the one to snap, and Elena tries and fails to stop her as she uses their combined magic to strangle a literal child to death. The episode ends with the two back in the present, Estelle having lost her memories of the whole ordeal. But Elena remembers, and she runs from that house as fast as she can, without a thought to spare for the money that got her into this mess. I went into episode 10 convinced that this must finally be the tipping point, something so traumatic it would force the kind of growth I'd been hoping to see from the beginning, but our Elena seems to recover just fine. However, in the dreamland, there is an evil Elena, and it quickly becomes apparent that this is the version of her who didn't succeed in putting her emotional shield back up, who couldn't get over how helpless she was in that moment where it really mattered, and she's so disgusted with herself over it that she's out to destroy herself through killing every other Elena she finds here. Wandering Witch is the kind of show that hurts a bit, because I feel like it was so close to being everything I wanted to see, but we don't quite get there. Confronting this other version of herself just doesn't go the way I'd been hoping. That shield is still pretty rock solid, unfortunately. As much as she frustrates me, I feel like Elena is actually a pretty fantastic character. At least, she had the potential to be. In some universe, there's a version of this story where she confronts her shortcomings and grows to be a stronger person. It's just not this one. I kind of got away from reviewing this series as a whole over the course of this video. I don't think Wandering Witch is a bad anime, but it's one that's hard for me to recommend. It's not quite lighthearted enough to give you the peaceful, cozy, low-stakes sort of enjoyment that something like Flying Witch might, if you're looking for that kind of laid-back slice-of-life story. But it also doesn't bring its major conflict to enough of a conclusion to make this more exciting attempt at a deeper storyline feel worth it. I am left feeling unsatisfied enough that I'll err on the side of not recommending it, but it is an anime I'm especially interested to hear other people's input on if you have already seen it. Thank you for watching.